Hey, what's going on, guys? It's your boy Sperato. Hope you all had a merry ass Christmas. I thought I'd do a kind of Christmas-y kind of themed profile. There's a penguin in it, okay? Um, but yeah, I just got back home from locals. I got, I think, 5th out of about 30 people. Flunder is a lot of fun, and I thought I might as well just profile it for you guys. So before we get into the card for card, all of the baby Floowandereeze monsters, the little ones, share the same effect, where you can't special summon the turn you use any of their effects. And once their effects resolve, you can normal summon again, and they just have this big chain of normal summons. And then when they leave the field, they get banished instead of getting sent to the grave. And when you normal summon a winged beast while they're banished, you can add them back to your hand. So it creates for a lot of annoying chain blocks, and it gets you a whole ton of card advantage. So for the little Floowandereeze monsters, I played 3 copies of Robina. This is your searcher for your level 4 lower winged beasts. We play 3 copies of Eglin. This is to search your level 5 or higher winged beasts. And then we played 2 Shri to banish our opponent's graveyard and our own graveyard, and 1 Token to add back our Floowandereeze cards that were banished. I felt like this was the correct ratio because you always want to have a bird in hand. These ones do a lot on their own since they're searchers. This one is really easy to set up your plays. Like, if you can get this plus anything else, you can get a play going because you can just banish your own spells that you might have used in your graveyard just to get your normal summons going. And it's just a great interruption to banish something in your opponent's grave. Came up a lot. I even banished like a DPE. It's really, really good. Talkin is a little bit more niche and requires a lot more setup, so I felt like he was just a solid one of to search. He's actually the way you get back your M pen, so I just felt like, you know, 1 Talkin was enough, and I didn't want to just brick on a bunch of him. So the 3-3-2-1 ratio, I didn't regret it. It was really good. So that was pretty much our engine. We have a ton of boss monsters in the deck and just interruptions in general. So I play 1 M pen. I know some decks play 2. I feel like you only need 1. What this card does is when it's tribute summoned, you can search for a Floowandereeze spell trap, so that's really insane. Immediately afterwards, normal summon another monster, and it could be any monster, by the way, so that's kind of funny too with Floowandereeze and M-Pen. And while it's on the field, your opponent's special summoned monsters cannot activate their effects if they're in attack position, so it basically just says you can't link summon while this card's around. And then if anything tries to swing into it, or it swings into something bigger than it, it can just have the attack by banishing a card from your hand, which you don't care, because all the Floowandereeze come back from the banish pile to your hand. So this card really just rounds up the whole deck together. It's your main boss monster, I'd say, and I only run 1 because I feel like 2s really win more. It's not like it's Stratos, you don't need multiple to search multiple spells and traps. There's a loop that you can do, kind of a loop, quote unquote. You use Shri to banish this in the graveyard, and then you use Talkin to add it back to your hand. So I never really regretted the decision of just running 1 of this because I could always get it back if I need to, and it was really easy. In fact, the turn it was sent to the graveyard, I always got it back and summoned it back out again. Like, you really don't need to. So I'll show you what I prefer over the second M-Pen. So instead of playing the 1 M-Pen, I played a second copy of Ryza the Mega Monarch. I felt like the second Ryza was just a lot better. The reason for that is because the way this card works is when you tribute summon it and you use a win as a tribute, you're gonna bounce 2 cards, 1 back to the hand, 1 back to the top of the deck, and the graveyard in the top of the deck in any order. So basically, the reason you run 2 is because once you use your first one, if you want to use it again later in the grind game, because you're not going to always have those blowout matchups, you're going to have a lot of matchups where you're going to have to grind with your opponent, and Rise is kind of the key to grinding. So if you want to keep him, you would have to bounce him back to your hand, and that's like wasting a bounce. I would rather have a higher impact card, so when you play 2, you summon the 1, bounce a bunch of shit, and maybe put back your wind barrier statue or whatever back in the top of your deck, and then the next turn you can just tribute this off and bounce him back to the top of the deck. So you constantly loop your 2 Rise of the Mega Monarchs, and then just make sure you always have a grind game and you always have a Rise alive. And this felt a lot more impactful than having the 2 M-Pen. However, I do understand that this card's dummy expensive for no reason, so if you want to just play 2 M-Pen, you can go ahead. There's not a huge difference, but I felt like this was a really good decision on my part. Of course, we played the extremely basic Apex Avian and the Wind Barrier Statue. These are essential to playing the deck. Barrier Statue is literally a walking win condition, and I can't tell you how many games this won. I think it won all my games, actually. It's just such a dumb, broken card, and this deck will be a lot weaker when they eventually ban this card, if they do even ban this card, because I don't think Flunder is that big of a deal right now. Apex Avian, on the other hand, is also insanely good because this is a non-once per turn negate, so you can, like, there were games where I made this and then they got rid of it by me negating it, or negating something they had, goes back to the hand, and then I just summoned more shit and then summoned this again, and then I got another negate. It also just helps you when there's like evenly matched, like they declare a battle phase, so at the end of the main phase you use your trap, you set this up, and then all of a sudden they can't use that against you. So it's just a really good backup plan, and it's also great if your opponent has to pass to the barrier statue, you make this to set up. It's so good. So yeah, definitely run these two. For the hand traps, I decided to main. I played 3 copies of Dimension Shifter, absolutely the MVP of the deck, 3 copies of Ash Blossom Joy's Spring, and 3 copy of Imperm. So I decided to play all these because I wanted to main deck D-Shifter. I think D-Shifter is just one of the most broken cards in the game, and it makes too much sense to main, right? Or not to main, right? Because not only are you just floodgating your opponent and probably skipping their turn, especially when you the deck kind of struggles to go second, so this is just a turn skip and it makes it a lot easier to go second, but also it allows you to dodge Droll, basically, because Droll sends to the grave as a cost. It allows you to dodge Effect Veiler. I think it's a mistake to run the Dogmatica package over this. It just protects the deck and skips your opponent's turn unless they're playing a banished deck like you are. Ash Blossom, a lot of people are saying they're cutting this and it's not good or whatever, but there's so much DPE and nobody, and I mean nobody, summons Verde to go into DPE. They always use Destiny Fusion or Fusion Destiny, whatever it's called, and I Ashed that every single time. I always just held on to Ash and waited for Fusion Destiny, and it saved my ass so many times. Imperm was just like a generic good flexible card, and it also didn't conflict with D-Shifter since they don't need to send themselves to grave, so I just figured it was a good hand trap to main. It's one of the best hand traps of all time, so yeah, definitely a solid hand trap lineup. For the Flunder spell traps, I played 3 of the Mysterious Map. It's just one of the better cards in the deck because it allows you to chain block and it gives you an interruption on your opponent's turn. One of the Unexplored Winds. This is super important to play because it gives you an out to not just like untargetable monsters and stuff, but it also gives you an out to spells and traps. So if you get Mystic Mind or something, you can tribute their stuff for cost for the tribute summon of a monster. So you gotta play the 1 just so you have a searchable out to bullshit, basically. And then the 1 trap card, you really only need the 1. You can recycle it over and over again and you don't want to brick on it. But yeah, this just allows you to normal summon during your opponent's main phase, and if you tribute summon a level 5, I think, or level 7 or higher wing beast, I don't know, if you summon any of your high level wing beasts, you can flip them all face down. So instead of going into Ryza and overcommitting, sometimes you could just go into Apex Avian and flip all their stuff face down. Wouldn't change the lineup at all. I think this is very standard for Flunder players as well. I don't play the counter trap as well. I think it's a counter trap. Yeah, it's a counter trap. I don't play that trap as well because it only works on inherent summons, aka summons that don't start chains. There's barely any summons that don't start chains until like very much later into the combo. Like if they activate Destiny Fusion, then like what are you gonna do, right? So I just didn't play that trap at all. The rest of the deck was basically just power spells. We played 3 copies of Book. I really loved Book. It prevented me from getting hit by Imperm, Veiler, any targeting effects. I dodged Widow Anchor a million times. And it also duoed as a just kind of an interruption for your opponent or a way to bait out their negates, and it was just great. It's really great. I prefer this over Crossout Designator 100,000% because Crossout's only good for one thing. This is great for multiple things. 3 copies of Pot of Prosperity with the 3 copies of Pot of Duality. Again, you don't care about special. You can't special summon with the deck, so Duality's totally fine to play. I like this and this over like 3 Extrav because those 2 conflict where these 2 don't conflict. And I prefer Prosperity over Extrav in general because this deck really needs to see a bird and some way to chain block in order to get their combo going. So this just allows you to dig through the deck and get exactly what you need, where Extrav is more for decks that really need that card advantage, which this deck does not need whatsoever. I also play 1 Gold Sark. This is just a way to chain block. You probably won't need to play this when you get the new Floowandereeze spell in Battles of Chaos, but basically you banish a Flunder monster and then you have 1 in hand, you normal summon it. It's kind of like having an extra copy of the map but without the interruption. one Called by the Grave, because again, deck is kind of vulnerable to hand traps, and one Terraforming to see more copies of the mysterious map. I'm gonna speed through the extra deck because you literally never use it. It very rarely comes up. So I play the Merry Christmas package, the Makaba, the Nova, and the Intis. This is if they Maximus you send Intis and Nova. They have to negate the Intis, and then you get a free Mechaba on your side of the field. That's before you go into your normal summon, so that's really good. I play one Assembled Nightingale, one Promenade Thrush, one Fucho, one Downward Magician, one Zeus. This is again just like all Zeus fodder. That's all this is. I play one Farajit to extend my plays if I want to go into the extra deck. I play one Shurag just to banish something non-targeting, and also it can search in the graveyard. Both of these actually have really good graveyard effects. One Phoenix, one Unicorn to deal with just any kind of annoying floodgates. One Access Code if I have lethal, Boral Sword for the same reason, or to get rid of, unaffected by card effect tower monsters. And my personal favorite, 5-headed dragon, simply because if you're playing against any control deck and you just have a bunch of the little birds on the field, you can just go into this and just automatically win the duel. For my side deck, I decided to play 3 copies of Droll and Lock. I know this conflicts with D-Shifter, but the way I see it is most decks that lose to D-Shifter also lose to Droll, so you just want to see one, and if you have both, just drop a D-Shifter. If you see one or the other, great, you probably just made them skip their turn anyway, so I just felt like it was kind of necessary. 3 copies of Effect Veiler, I just felt like this card was insanely good against Sword Soul, because targeting negation is just really great against that deck. 3 copies of Lightning Storm, it's a flexible destruction board breaker card. 3 copies of Evenly Matched, just more back row control removal, and 3 copies of Harpy's Featherstorm. So this might be like kind of hard to believe, but I never went into my side deck for the entire local, except when I went first, I would side out some cards to put in Featherstorm, just because, like, why wouldn't you? It's absurd. Featherstorm is really dumb in this deck because you can't really respond to it unless you have Red Reboot, which is a one of. Negates everything on the field, and also just like you don't care if you get hand trapped with your, like, you summon Rabina, the impermanent, okay, set this, flip this up, skip their turn, and then try again next turn. So this was great, but I literally didn't use any of the other cards. You could probably play like anything that goes well with your local, but the Featherstorm I feel like is the only like truly necessary thing every Flunder player should be playing, especially while it's not currently banned. I'm going to be entirely honest here, this deck is super brain dead and very easy to play, so I'm not going to go too in depth with combos and guides and stuff like I did with like my Dragoonity profile, my Armed Dragon profiles. It's such an easy deck to pilot. Just read the cards and you'll just kind of understand how to get into, your same end board with a million different combinations of cards. But for the newer players who just want to see how this deck works, I'll show you very basic bread and butter. So you just need any Winged Beast, that's the low level ones, and then your map. So I'm going to activate the map, and I'm going to reveal Rabina in my hands, and then that will banish my Eglin. This will allow me to normal summon Rabina, chainlink 1 Rabina, chainlink 2 Eglin. Eglin's going to go back into my hands, and Rabina is going to add a Wind Barrier statue, and then I can normal summon Eglin off of the Rabina effect. This will allow me to add M-Pen, so we'll do that. We'll tribute these 2. These will leave the field so they get banished. Tribute summon M-Pen, chainlink 1 M-Pen, chainlink 2 Rabina, because we haven't used its effect yet. Add this back to the hands, and then we'll add a trap card. Let's say this. This is a good one to, probably the best one to add to your hand because it's more flexible. You can be really greedy and add this, because if they normal summon, which they have to under Wind Barrier, you can just tribute their own thing off the map to make your Apex Avian, but like that's really, really greedy. I think it's a lot safer to go with the trap. Then you can just normal summon your barrier statue, set the trap pass. This is kind of like the optimal end board, right? Because if they normal summon, which they probably have to, it'll trigger you to summon Rabina. That gets you into Eglin, and then Eglin gets you into Ryzen. You can bounce back their normal summon, then they have to end their turn. And then you can like flip this up, set up Apex Avian depending on what your hand is. And if they try to break your board with like a Lightning Storm or something like that, you can always chain this. If they try and go into the battle phase, you can use this to make Apex Avian. There's a lot of different combo routes, and it's not really a combo deck, it's a control deck. So just kind of like figure out what each of the cards do, and you'll easily be able to navigate through all of your plays and get to whatever you want. But this is like your basic bread and butter that every Flunder player has to know. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure you leave a like, it helps out a lot, and especially subscribe, because I'm trying to get to 500 subs so I can make community posts and whatnot, and it helps me interact with you guys more. Again, thanks so much. I'll see you guys later. Peace.